Hello everyone, my name is Jenny Chen and I'm the Vice President of JPIC. I'm a senior at Haynes Academy for Advanced Studies.
All right, sorry about that, guys. We finally got it fixed. We had some technical difficulties, and we got it fixed.
So we're good to go?
Yep, we're good to go. You can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'd like to start by thanking you so much for having me here and giving me the opportunity to talk to you all. And thank you for showing up. Though this might not be the most exciting thing to do on a Saturday night, even given the limited options of being in a global pandemic. But if you are here, you must have at least some interest in the law and becoming a lawyer. There we go. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what I do and how I got there to help you decide if this is something you wanted to do. So I'll start by telling you a little bit about me. Like I said, my name's Rachel Nakhan. I did my undergrad education at American University in Washington, D.C. I majored in international studies and minored in Mandarin Chinese. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, what in the world does international studies and Mandarin Chinese have to do with the law? But one of the great things about law school is, unlike medical school or some other type of graduate program, there aren't really any prerequisites to take before you go to law school. You can major in anything that you want. The only thing that you have to do is take the LSAT, which is like the ACT, SAT for law school. And in fact, I think some schools are even getting rid of that requirement. But you're pretty much free to major in whatever you want in undergrad. And good thing, because I didn't decide I wanted to go to law school until the summer after my junior year. I thought that might be something I'd be interested in. And I came back my senior year and joined our mock trial team at American. And that really sealed the deal for me. For those of you that don't know what mock trial is, it's a competition type team where you're given a set of facts and you put on both sides of the case and essentially conduct a mock trial before a panel of judges who are usually local attorneys or judges, and you compete against different teams from different schools. And I absolutely loved it. It showed me that I really had a passion for the law, and I made some great friends while I did it. So I applied to Penn State Law in middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. This is a picture of me at graduation in the funny hat they make us wear. And when I originally started law school, I thought I wanted to do criminal law. That was certainly the area of the law that I was most familiar with. And that was what I was convinced I wanted to do when I started. So the summer after my first year in law school, I clerked for both the Orleans Parish District Attorney's Office and the Jefferson Parish Public Defender's Office. And what I learned that summer is that criminal law really wasn't for me. Which is something I would have never known had I tried it, but it just wasn't something I was as interested in as I thought I would be. So then the summer after my second year of law school, I clerked for the firm I'm at now, Gainsbourg Benjamin, David Meunier, and Warschauer. And what we do at Gainsbourg Benjamin is what you call, not the way I meant to go, plaintiff's personal injury. And what that is anytime someone gets hurt, whether it's in a car accident, like your typical car accident case, or you slip and fall at a store or get injured on someone's property, or you're injured by a defective product. Anytime someone gets injured, they could come to us and we would help them recover for their injuries. So I'm going to share with you some lawyer humor. And this is going to be my feeble attempt to recreate one of those popular memes that's been going around. A lot of people have differing opinions or ideas of what lawyers actually do out in the world and not just on TV. But I can tell you this, my friends, they think my life is just like Legally Blonde. That I go to court one day, ask the witness the magic answer, or magic question, and the witness answers and it solves everything in my case and the judge rules in my favor and everyone goes home happy, the end. My parents, they think my life is like Law and Order. Very high drama, that I'm constantly hunting down witnesses and trying to find that crucial piece of evidence to the case. But what I actually do looks a little more like this, although I am much happier than the man in this picture. But what I mean is being a lawyer is actually a lot of work. In order to get that perfect answer from the witness in court or to find that crucial piece of evidence, you have to do a lot of research. By the time you get to court, you want to know absolutely everything there is to know about your case. No surprises. You want to know the evidence backwards and forwards so you can put forth the best case you can to either the judge or jury. Being a lawyer also requires a lot of writing, and good writing skills are very important to be able to portray to the judge your client's side of the facts. Almost everything you want to do in court requires you to submit a brief or kind of like a research paper on the issue you want the judge to rule on. So writing skills are very important. And probably the biggest thing in being a good lawyer is you need to have creative problem-solving skills. People don't come to us because everything in their life is going great. They come to us because they have a problem that they haven't been able to figure out how to solve on their own, and they need some help from us. So being able to think creatively about a problem and come up with solutions that other people might normally not reach, that's very important in being a lawyer. So what do I do in a day as a lawyer? Well, I looked at my calendar entries for the past few months to kind of give you a snapshot of things that I've worked on. And if I'm explaining any of this and none of it makes sense, please submit questions and I'm happy to answer those after. So one of the things I did was I went to court at the 24th Judicial District Court in Gretna, and I argued a hearing on a motion to compel discovery responses before the judge. And this was a situation where we asked the defendant for some documents. They didn't want to give them to us. So we went to the judge and asked for her help in getting these documents. I also did some research on a restaurant's duty to its patrons in a situation where a patron might contract food poisoning from eating at a restaurant. Does a restaurant have any responsibility to prevent that from happening? That was a question we wanted answered before we decided to take on a client's case. I also called some clients to provide updates on the case and give them an idea of where we were at in the process, what the next steps were, because keeping the client informed is very important to our job. At the end of the day, it's the client's case, and if they don't know what's going on, then that's not good. I also had some screening calls with potential clients. And this will be people who have called the firm that need our help, and I call them back and ask them certain questions to find out more about what happened to them and if it's a case that we might be able to take on. I also went to inspect some equipment out in Lacassine, Louisiana. And if you're wondering where that is, I was too before this inspection. Just so you know, it's about an hour west of Lafayette, but I never would have been able to go there. Well, I could have gone there, but I never would have heard of it if I hadn't been working on this case. And it was a whole new area of Louisiana that I was able to go see. I also took the deposition of a defendant doctor in a medical malpractice case out in Baton Rouge. I edited and filed a petition for damages, which is the document that you file when you want to start a lawsuit. And I drafted for some against a defendant manufacturer. And this was a situation where we were trying to get the judge to rule on an issue because, as we saw it, a jury could never rule in favor of the defendant on this issue. It was so clear it could be decided right now, so we wouldn't have to fight about it later at trial. And as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different things that we do as lawyers, at least in the plaintiff's personal injury world. And that's one of the things I love most about my job is the variety. I can go into work with a plan and I get a couple phone calls, a couple emails, and the plan is completely changed. I never know what I'm going to be doing on any given day when I go into the office. And I can't say I'm ever bored in doing plaintiff's personal injury work. And then another thing that I love most about my job is the people I get to help. Because we represent individuals who are injured, they come to us at a pretty rough time in their life. And to be able to help them with that problem and fight for the little guy, that's always rewarding no matter what. No matter what's going on in my day, I can always count on being able to help people in fixing the problems that they have. So you might be thinking all of that's probably changed in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I know that's true for many professions. But actually, on the plaintiff's personal injury side of things, we've been doing the same work, just in a different place. So instead of going to the office am working on my clients' cases, I've been working from home. But even though many things halted in light of the pandemic, we still have a responsibility to our clients to try and move their cases forward as best as we can. So while we are in different places, we are still doing the same work, which makes things look a little bit different. For instance, while our firm meetings used to take place in the conference room, this is what our firm meetings look like now. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Zoom meetings, especially considering that that's how I'm talking to you right now. But that's really the only thing that's changed for us, at least. Our hearings, our depositions, our meetings, they're all conducted over Zoom now. Some things are starting to be in person again, as in I have some hearings in the court, but they've staggered when attorneys appear. It used to be all the attorneys showed up to argue their motions at the same time, and they would call your case one by one. At least the court out in Gretna, the way they're doing it now is they give you an assigned time, but the proceeding is still the same. We're still going before the judge, we're arguing our motion, and same thing for depositions. We're still conducting depositions of witnesses, which is like asking them questions, kind of like you would do in court, just outside the presence of a judge. And that's all conducted via Zoom. So while our location has changed of where we're doing the work, we're all pretty much still doing the same type of work we were doing before. And that's all that I have prepared, but please, if you have any questions about what I talked about, or there was an area I didn't cover that you want to know more about, please submit your questions and I'm happy to answer them. And if you don't think about it right now and you think about it later and want to give me a call or shoot me an email, please do not hesitate to ask, because I'm always happy to talk about law school, the law, being a lawyer, anything you might have questions about.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Mackin.
Sure.
Mr. Zeno, do you want to go ahead and present? And then after, we'll take questions from everyone for both of you.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. I am Micah Zeno. I'm an attorney at the law firm of Gordon, Orada, Montgomery, Barnett. Actually, the law firm name is much longer than that. That's the shortened version. Gordon, Orada, Montgomery, Barnett at our New Orleans office, where I've been working for about 3 years now. But I didn't start off here. I actually started off at West Jefferson High School in Harvey, Louisiana. So I'm a Gretna guy, actually a Terrytown guy to be more specific. So I graduated from West Jefferson High School in 1997, valedictorian of my class of about 400 students. And then after that, I went to Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, Florida, where I participated in a 5-year MBA program. What that means is in 5 years, I graduated with both my master's degree and my undergraduate degree. And actually for me, it was a little bit longer than 5 years because I did several internships while I was in school. But after I graduated from Florida A&M, I got a job working in banking and finance at what was then called AmSouth Bank. It's now Regions Bank at the corporate office in Birmingham, Alabama. I worked there for about 6 years. And I first started off in small business lending as an underwriter, which is just a fancy term for someone who approves and structures loans. So that means when you structure a loan, how much time someone has to pay back that loan, what their interest rate is on that loan, basically how much they have to pay you in order to get that money or borrow those funds, and then any other conditions on that loan. Maybe they have to give you financial statements or copies of their checking account statements every month or every year. And so I did that for about 4 years before I moved over into our healthcare real estate group, where we did the same type of work, but we did it for healthcare real estate companies real estate developers who specialize in building healthcare real estate. So medical office buildings and surgery centers, big physician office plazas that are sometimes connected to hospitals where you might go to visit your doctor. So I did that, and then sometime shortly after that, I reconnected with my high school sweetheart. We got married. I see a whole bunch of people smiling now. We got married. She had a great job in Florida, so I moved to Florida. We were there for about 1.5 years. And while we were there, I started studying for the LSAT, which, as Rachel mentioned, is the test to get into law school. We moved back to New Orleans shortly after that, and then I attended Tulane. I always like to tell people that I married my high school sweetheart because I know there are a lot of high school students watching this. And so when you go to class and you're on these Zoom conferences from now on, Jenny, I see you smiling. You may look at your classmates a little bit differently now because you may be sitting next to your future spouse. I just want to throw that out for everyone. So anyway, I went to Tulane. I went to Tulane Law School and did a whole bunch of really cool stuff while I was at Tulane. Mock trial was one of those, which gives you a chance to pretend to be a lawyer in kind of a risk-free setting. I was on the honor board, actually chief justice of our honor board, which is a group of students who essentially act as both police, judge, and jury when students violate the honor code or the code of ethics that you have when you're in law school. I participated in something called clinic, which is an opportunity for you as a law school student to represent real clients with real issues before real judges. And it kind of helps you prepare to become a real attorney after you graduated from law school. So a whole bunch of cool stuff. Graduated from law school and then began clerking in Jefferson Parish for the Honorable Judge June Berry Derensburg. Judge Derensburg is the first and only Black female elected judge in Jefferson Parish. I clerked for her for 2 years. And so you're asking yourself, well, what does it mean to be a law clerk? That's a great question. So if you've ever been on an airplane, in an airplane there's a pilot and a co-pilot. Well, when you go into the courtroom, the judge is the pilot and the law clerk is the judge's co-pilot. And so we do research for the judge on issues, novel issues sometimes that come before the court. We make recommendations to judges on how he or she should rule in particular cases. We help with jury trials. We help administer the process of court and essentially act as a co-pilot for a judge. So it's pretty cool. Basically, I tell people being a law clerk is like being a referee at a football game before you actually have to become a player. You learn how the ref is going to make all those calls. You learn the rules of the game, and then you can enter private practice or go to the district attorney's office or join a big fancy plaintiff's law firm like Rachel, and then you're actually a player in the game, right? So I clerked for 2 years and then joined my law firm where I've been a practicing attorney or a litigator for the last 3 years. What does that mean? So that means I'm representing clients who get sued. So Rachel's law firm might sue someone and they say, you know what? I need someone to represent me, to defend me against this lawsuit, and they may hunt down an attorney like me at a law firm that does defense work. And so that's kind of what I've been doing for the last 3 years, which I love it. It's very similar to what I did when I played football at West Jefferson because I was a defensive back. So I'm used to working against an offense. I'm used to responding to complaints. I'm used to making interceptions. I'm used to making tackles. And that's essentially what a lawyer does at a defense law firm. I'm used to going after the quarterback. I'm used to looking for weaknesses in the offensive line. We're used to doing these things. And so now I'm doing the very same thing, but from a legal standpoint. I want to talk a little bit about some things that folks kind of misperceptions, I guess, that people have about the practice of law. And Rachel mentioned this a little bit where she talked about how her friends think she's legally blind and her parents think that it's like an episode of Law and Order, what it's really like is a big stack of paper, which is 100% true. There's a lot of reading involved, a lot of writing involved, a lot of research on what legal issues are and how judges, like my old judge, how judges have ruled in previous cases. So you can try to forecast how the judge might rule in your case. So a lot of reading, writing, and research when you're an attorney. But the biggest thing I want to tell you all is that lawyers help people. Lawyers help people. And there are a lot of different types of lawyers. And so when you watch TV, one of my favorite shows is How to Get Away with Murder, which is shockingly realistic, especially in the law school side. Lawyers help people. So you get this perception when you watch TV that there's one type of lawyer, right? A criminal law attorney. You walk into the courtroom, you say, you can't handle the truth. Somebody bursts through the courtroom doors and they have some evidence and they say, yes, Judge, we have the evidence right here. We just got it. We're so sorry. And the case is over right before the commercial break. Well, most cases don't move that quickly. It's not that dramatic. Most criminal cases, most defendants plead out of court, so they never go to trial. Most civil cases, when people are suing each other, most civil cases end up settling, so they rarely go to trial. So there's a lot of negotiations that go on behind the scenes. So it's not that dramatic, but it is very exciting. But the reality is that lawyers help people. So don't get caught up in the fact that you see TV and you see someone who may not look like you or who's practicing in an area of law that you're not particularly interested in, because there are a lot of different areas of law. And so there's some lawyers who go to trial all the time. There's some lawyers who never go to trial and they just argue cases on appeal. There's some lawyers who are not litigators, meaning they don't go to court, they don't sue people, they don't get sued. They just draft documents for contracts for businesses. When a business wants to purchase a piece of equipment, or when one business wants to buy another, when one business wants to issue shares to stockholders, they just draft documents. There are lawyers who represent environmental causes. They represent protesters. There are lawyers who work in libraries. I have a good friend who's an attorney who's a librarian at a law firm. There are lawyers who work for the military, who work in NASA. So there's lawyers all over the place who do some very creative, very interesting things. So I would suggest to you that if you're thinking about becoming a lawyer, you're not sure what it means, just think about the things that you like. Think about the things that you like doing on a day-to-day basis. And there's a pathway in the field of law that does just that thing that you like doing. And so if you're a musician, there are lawyers who represent musicians. So there's a lawyer who does a thing that you like doing. So if you want to be a lawyer and you're not sure if it's for you, just think about what you do like. And I assure you, there's a pathway into the field of law. And you'll be able to help people as a result of your interests that you already have. Some of those people might be individuals, like your classmates, your teachers, your family, your friends. Some of those people might be what we call in Louisiana law a juridical person, meaning a business, an entity, or a corporation, which might have employees. Some of those people might be government entities. They might be cities, municipalities. Or there might be a particular interest, a cause that you want to lobby for as an attorney. And so there's opportunity for you. There's space for you. There's someone in the practice of law who feels the same way that you feel, who looks the same way that you do, who went to the same high school that you did and grew up the same way you did, whether you come from a long line of attorneys or you're going to be the very first attorney in your family. There's room for you. And so that's just a little bit about my perception of the practice of law. I love it. I really enjoy doing it. I like helping people. I always look for things that are interesting. I like a good challenge. I like being creative. To me, sometimes being a lawyer is like putting puzzle pieces together without looking at the actual puzzle or what the picture is on the box. Sometimes it's more like strategy. Sometimes it's like playing checkers where you're making very quick moves. Sometimes it's like chess where you're making very long-term strategic moves. Sometimes it's like playing a football game where you're on the offense or the defense. Sometimes it's like being in a symphony because you may be working on a case with 5, 10, 50 other lawyers in some of these massive cases. And you've got to figure out how to coordinate the activities of 50 different lawyers in 3 different states, 2 different time zones, and 6 different countries. There's space for you to be a lawyer. So whatever it is you like to do, you can do it. You know, I'm married. I have a 4-year-old. Work-life balance is possible when you're a lawyer. I assure you it is. I am in the office right now, but that's because I knew my 4-year-old was going to be running in and out of the screen while we were doing this, which maybe that would have been good for you guys to see. But so there's work-life balance, there's room, there's space for you to be a lawyer. I would suggest to you this. If you're thinking about what you're going to study in college to become a lawyer, you already know you want to be a lawyer and you're saying to yourself, what classes should I take? I would say take classes in whatever you're interested in, whatever you're interested in right now, because that's going to be helpful for you later on. There are a couple of core classes that I think everyone should take either when you're an undergraduate or in your law school. I would say do as much writing as possible, do as much reading as possible, because no matter what you do, lawyers do a lot of writing. We do a lot of reading. Even if you're one of these lawyers who's a litigator who likes to go to court and argue a lot, you're still going to have to write a brief. You know, when you go to court, you're going to have to argue your brief. Before you go to court, you have to file that brief so the judge can read over what you're going to say. So practice reading, practice writing, take some courses in English so you can expand your vocabulary and expand your writing style, and get as much practice doing oral argument as you can. So a speech class, a debate class will be great, especially if you're someone who doesn't like to do debate, doesn't like to do speech. You think that you're shy or introverted. You may find that once you're standing in front of a judge or a jury, that something happens and you turn into a superstar. So take those classes. Take the classes that you're uncomfortable taking, because as a lawyer, you're often placed in uncomfortable positions. I'd also suggest that you take any type of class or get involved in any activity that requires you to negotiate or debate with others. That will be very helpful for you as you become an attorney, because again, like I mentioned, we're often negotiating settlement agreements, negotiating plea sentences with defendants. And so your ability to negotiate, whether you're negotiating with your classmates, whether you're negotiating with your teacher for an extra week on that assignment that you had that was past due, whether you're negotiating with your teacher to look at that exam you submitted or that essay you submitted to possibly regrade it because you think the teacher might have gotten something wrong, whether you're negotiating with your boyfriend or girlfriend over what movie you're going to see, whether you're negotiating with your parents over what they're going to get you for the holidays or how late you get to stay out. Practice these negotiating skills now, because they will come in handy later. And I'm going to say one thing that may sound a little funny, and then I'm going to yield back to Mr. Robayet. If you get a chance, take an acting class. That's something that my dad recommended to me. My dad's a retired judge who was on the bench for 17 years, and he said, take an acting class, because a lot of times as a lawyer, you have to represent your client's interests. You have to represent how your client feels. But you can't get so emotionally involved in the case that you lose track of what you're arguing, that you lose track of how the judge or the jury are receiving your comments, that you lose track of how your opposing counsel is arguing something over a provision in a contract. But you've got to be able to understand and express the emotions of your clients, the folks you represent. And so take an acting class so you can kind of channel your inner Annalise Keating, if I will, or your inner actor or actress as you prepare to enter the practice of law. And that way, you'll be able to convey someone else's emotions, convey their interests, and still maintain a clear, a cool, and a calm head to get your point across. So I'm looking forward to see everyone from JPYC become lawyers and attorneys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any point in time. I mean that honestly. We do a lot of speaking at schools and classrooms, and so we're always available to you to talk about law school, getting ready for law school, and that's whether you're thinking about it now or 3 years from now, 4 years from now, you decide to go to law school, 6 years from now, you decide to go to law school and you have a question. Pick up the phone, give us a call, we'll be glad to help.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Zeno. We actually have several questions from our viewers for you guys. So I'll go ahead and start with the questions, and you two can either take turns answering them. Most of them are general questions, so you guys can both answer them. All right? So the first question is, what would you say is your experience with work-life balance?
You want to take that one, Micah, or at least take it first?
Yeah, so my experience with work-life balance is that it changes over time, and you're going to change over time. And so the concept of me for work-life balance now as a husband and a father of a 4-year-old and a practicing attorney is very different from when I was in Birmingham and I was single. And so that doesn't mean I don't work just as hard. It doesn't mean I don't put in the hours, but it's just a different perspective, I think. And so if the question is, how do you balance your work and your life? The reality is, as best you can. I would suggest, like most things, when you're in law school, you're going to have a schedule. You have a schedule right now. And the reality is, if you're in high school, you're putting in more hours in the classroom and more hours studying than when you're in undergrad and in law school, because you go to every class every day. You've got an assignment due every day. And so you're used to scheduling and budgeting your time. I would suggest to you, get in the habit now of scheduling and budgeting your personal time, your bachelorette time, your American Ninja Warrior time, your Walking Dead time, or I'm watching a really good series on Netflix called Kingdom. I'm a big zombie movie fan. So schedule that time out now. And establish clear boundaries for yourself and make that clear to the folks around you. So I know a lot of attorneys, and I have a lot of good friends who make it very clear that there's a certain time of the day that's for them, that's for their families. For some folks, when they leave work, that's it. That's it. Don't call them about work stuff. It's not going to happen. I have some colleagues who work overnight. They're night owls, so they're up at 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning doing work. I come into work at like, 7:30, 8. I see emails from them at 3 in the morning. But that's their work schedule. And so find out what works best for you. Schedule that time out, and then make it clear for yourself, for your family, for your friends of what your boundaries are. And so that way you'll be able to maintain it. The other thing I would say is just to be flexible, because what's important to you now may not be important to you later. If you're single and you have kids, or you're single or you have kids, or you have a big family and you guys have family get-togethers for every Saints game, or you may have a parent who's elderly, who you have to take care of. You may have a parent who becomes divorced, who moves in with you. And now you got to take care of that parent, or a sibling who moves in with you. You may have a death in the family. You may have a sibling who gives birth to your first niece or nephew, and you want to fly across the country to go see that new niece or nephew. So just be flexible with yourself and give yourself a break when it comes to your own work-life balance, and know when to say enough is enough. I would also say have a good circle of friends around you that you can check in with from time to time to see how you're doing, to take a break from the work, because they're going to recognize things in you that you may not see in yourself. They're going to be able to say, hey, Jenny, and I'm picking on you because I need you to take a break. I know you're working really hard, but you need to take a break. I can tell you need to take a break. So schedule your time out, establish boundaries, and be flexible with yourself, because your priorities may change over time.
And the reason why I wanted to answer that question first is because I'm still struggling with work-life balance. And hopefully by the time I have more years in the workforce, I'll be better at it. But one thing that I have found is if you do good work, then the people that you work for are going to know that you're going to get stuff done. So if you have to leave early for an appointment, or to make your sister's birthday party, or anything like that, the people you work for know you do good work, and trust you to be able to get it done. But Micah's absolutely right. You need to set boundaries, because if you don't, you're going to get to a point where you're not going to be able to do good work anymore, and you're not going to be good use to the people you work for or to yourself. It's very important, and it's a hard lesson to learn when you first get out of school, but it's definitely doable, and you're the only person that could set those boundaries, and it's very important to do it. So.
All right, great. Next question is, what part of the process would you say was the toughest for you in becoming a lawyer?
Well, the toughest part for me was studying for the bar, because I went to school out of state, and I didn't know anything about Louisiana law. So that was a little challenging. I would say I've always been the type of person that I would study, but I wouldn't have to study furiously to get the material. I would pay attention during class and retain a lot of it. The bar exam was not like that. The bar exam, I had to study a lot, because I was doing some catch up from people that did go to a Louisiana school and did take Louisiana law. But a big part of the bar exam, and correct me if I'm wrong, Micah, I think if you have good writing skills, and you know at least a little bit about the law, you're going to be able to succeed on the bar exam. While it's kind of this dreaded thing, it's not impossible. Tons of people become lawyers every year, and that's something you just got to remember. And if you can write well and make the examiner see your point of view, that's going to get you a long way.
Yeah, this is going to sound crazy, but I actually loved taking the bar exam, and I loved studying for the bar. I look at Rachel shaking her head. I don't know. So, spoiler alert on law school. Here's the breakdown. You're in law school 3 years. Each semester, you go through class day after day after day after day. You only have one test per class. The grade on that one test determines your grade in the class. I know, right? So for me, taking exams in law school and taking the bar exam was an opportunity to show and demonstrate what I had learned, because you really don't get a chance to do that in law school all year long. I mean, you get up, you talk, and that kind of stuff in class, but there's no objective standard to say, yes, I really know what I'm doing, right? And so I really enjoyed I enjoyed taking exams in law school, and I enjoyed taking the bar exam, and I enjoyed studying for the bar exam. Matter of fact, I made friends studying for the bar exam who are my friends to this day, and we met because we were studying for the bar exam. They were at other law schools, and we just happened to take the same bar prep course. Um, my my table buddy for the bar exam, you'll be at a table, and usually there'll be one other person with you at that same table. My table buddy is still a buddy to this day. She actually works in this building. I see her all the time, and so I really enjoy taking the bar exam. And so I would say maybe the hardest part. So for me, that wasn't bad. I don't know. I think the hardest part for me in transitioning into becoming a lawyer probably has been accepting the fact, well, I mean, work-life balance is always going to be a challenge because I always felt the need as a young attorney to be at work and putting in the hours because remember, I worked for 6 years before I went to law school. So I was a little bit older than the average lawyer who went to undergrad, went to law school, and came right out. So maybe about 10 years older. And so, but I was at a different point in life. And so I always felt kind of a push to be in the office, be putting in the hours because I had to keep up with my younger peers. What I realized later on was that I had some values and something I could offer in the practice of law that my younger peers did not. And it was incumbent upon me to be able to leverage that in the practice of law. But I think the biggest thing for me in transitioning into becoming a lawyer was accepting the fact that I'm a lawyer and that with that comes a big obligation to help the public. And so I remember the first time I was walking to the courthouse and someone asked me, "Hey, are you a lawyer?" And my first response was going to say no. And I was like, wait a minute, I am a lawyer. I am a lawyer. And this person is coming to me for help. And I have a duty to help this person. I have a duty to help this person. And so that to me was very scary. It was very intimidating because I wasn't sure if I knew enough. And quite frankly, if I was good enough to be able to help someone who literally stopped me on the street and was asking for help. But I had to have confidence in myself, confidence in my training, confidence in what I knew to be able to help that gentleman and help those who have since come to me and say, "Hey, are you a lawyer? I need help." And so when you go to medical school, you get an MD, right? You become a medical doctor. When you go to law school, you're a JD. You're a doctor too. You get a Juris Doctorate. And so what that means is if you've ever been in a hospital, people go to the hospital when they need help. And if you've ever been in a hospital in an emergency room, sometimes they don't know who to ask for help. If you look like a doctor or nurse, they're just going to ask you for help. You could be an orderly in scrubs. It doesn't matter. They're going to say, "Are you a doctor? I need help." And it's the same thing when you're a lawyer. People are going to say, they're going to look at you, they're going to see you in a suit, and they're going to say, "Are you a lawyer? I need your help." And so that can be kind of scary, I think. And that even now, when I get a new client, sometimes I'm a little like, do I know this issue? But I have to go back to what and rely on what I learned in law school about my research, reaching out to my colleagues, and being confident in myself to be able to help those around me. But I think that's the biggest challenge for me, or the two biggest challenges is transitioning into work later in my career and figuring out where I was going to fit. And then also just being confident in myself and what I knew in my own skill set to be able to answer the question confidently when someone says, "Are you a lawyer? Can you help me?" And I can say, "Yes, I'm a lawyer. I'm here to help."
All right, perfect. Next question. How much of your life would you say you had planned out in high school?
I had planned out where I was going to go to undergrad and my major. And fortunately, when I got to undergrad, I liked the major I picked. And that was pretty much it. That was as far as I had gotten in high school. Like I said, I didn't decide I wanted to be a lawyer until pretty much my senior year of undergrad. So I didn't have that much of a plan. I knew where I was going for freshman year and what classes I was going to start taking, but I had no idea where I was going to end up.
Yeah, so a little bit the same way for me. I knew in undergrad that I wanted to go to business school because I just knew that as a minority and a person of color, I just needed to know about business and finance and how to manage money. My sister went to Florida A&M, so I followed in her footsteps, 7 years after her. And so I always thought about going to law school, but it just it wasn't the priority for me. While I was in undergrad, I got involved in some legal light stuff. I worked in the campus ministry office. I had to draft some documents for folks to check out books from the library. Our SGA president and vice president were disqualified from a campaign or an election that they won, and they asked me to represent them before the Student Supreme Court, which, I wasn't, pre-trial or anything like that in undergrad. So I was honored to do that. I worked on some campaigns while I was an undergrad, but I never really thought about going to law school in earnest until I got married. The short version of the story is once I got married, I left my job at the bank and I said, well, you know what? This is a good time for me to, start thinking about law school. And I started volunteering at the Bar Association in Orlando as a guardian ad litem, which is kind of a fancy term for someone who helps represent children who are involved in the legal system. And it was just kind of a good time to transition. So I didn't really have a whole lot in terms of law school planned out in undergrad. Really, it was just more so about what did I want to major in and what I was interested in.
All right, thank you. Next question. I once read that arguments in court can feel really stressful. Would you say that's true in your experience? And if so, how did you cope with it?
So I won't say they're stressful. I will say that being in a courtroom keeps you on your feet. When you go to court, you're going to be prepared. You're going to have done the research. You're going to have researched your issue. You're going to have researched the things that the other side are going to bring up. You're going to research the questions that the judge might ask you. You're going to practice in front of a mirror. You may practice in front of some of your colleagues at work. So you're going to be prepared when you go in. But you're always going to get asked some questions that maybe you didn't anticipate. There's always going to be something that happens in the courtroom that you may not have particularly been prepared for. And so I wouldn't necessarily call that stressful per se, but it definitely keeps you on your toes. So I wouldn't call it stressful. I would call it exciting. I've left court before feeling, tired. I mean, you're exhausted a lot when you're in court. I've been in court, 8 hours on one day. Sometimes you're really tired, just like if you were, playing in a football game or in a play all day or in a piano recital all day. It's the same type of energy. It's like you're flexing a muscle for that amount of time because you're thinking about a lot of things. But I wouldn't necessarily consider it to be stressful. But if it is stressful, I will tell you this. It's like a muscle. And so if it's stressful or if it's weak the first time you go into court or your first argument, the more you do it, the stronger you're going to become and the easier it's going to become for you. And so by your first time may be a little rough, your second time may be a little rough, but your 6th, 7th, 10th, 20th time, you're going to be able to walk into any courtroom, anywhere, and argue any issue and answer any question at a moment's notice. And so it gets a lot easier. You get stronger. You flex that muscle over time. And so things get less stressful over time.
So I'm a little biased, and Micah's advice to take an acting class was spot on because I did lots of theater in elementary school, high school. So being a lawyer is a different type of doing theater. And I'm the kind of person that gets an adrenaline rush from being up in front of people and either being in a play or presenting my argument before a judge. But that doesn't mean it's not stressful. And I think Micah's right. There's a very stress and excitement are two sides of the same coin. And if I do feel stressed about an argument or trial or anything like that, one thing I can control is being the most prepared person in the room. So I could be arguing against the named partner at Micah's firm who's done this a million times. And there's me, this third-year associate, fourth-year associate, arguing for, in the tens of times, but I can know absolutely everything about my case. I can prepare my argument. I can think of questions the judge might ask and how I might answer. Even this presentation that I gave to you guys today, I practiced at my desk before I got on the Zoom meeting, not even going to lie about it. You can control whether you're the most prepared person in the room. And if you know everything about your case, then you're going to do well. They're not going to throw anything at you that you're not going to know the answer to. So that's how I handle stress. If I walk into the courtroom and know I know absolutely everything there is to know about my case, then I can rely on that. If I feel a little stressed, but mainly excited.
All right, great. Now, the next question, what would you say was the most interesting experience that you've ever had in your entire career? Something that happened that you'll never forget.
So briefly, I had a case where I represented a victim of domestic violence pro bono, and when the judge issued the restraining order against the defendant stormed out of the courtroom and had to be brought back in by the bailiff. And so that was unexpected. And I had to think on my toes. The first thing I said was, may the record reflect that the defendant has just left the courtroom. And when the bailiff escorted him back in, I said, may the record reflect that the defendant has returned to the courtroom under armed escort. And the reason I did that, because if our case ever went up on an appeal, a lot of these things aren't on the record because we're all watching them. We see him walking out of the courtroom or storming out of the courtroom, but it's not being written down. And so when there's a trial going on, there's somebody who's typing everything down that everyone's saying. So I had to make sure I said those things so that if for some reason there was an appeal taken, it would be in the transcript that, hey, this guy ran out of the courtroom and he only came back under armed escort. So that I thought was pretty interesting.
Okay, mine's not nearly as exciting. You definitely won that battle, Micah. I would say something I'm never going to forget is I was working on a case for this elderly lady who I spent a lot of time talking to as I worked on her case. And by the end of it, we were able to resolve her claim. And it was a car accident case. Her car got totaled. She was pretty banged up. But one of the things she told me she was going to do with her settlement proceeds was buy herself a new car. And I forget exactly how old this woman was. At least in her 70s, close to her 80s. She had never owned a new car, brand new car in her entire life. And because of the work that we did on her case, we were able to get her or give her the means to purchase for herself. She went to the dealership, picked it out and everything, called me at the dealership to tell me about it. First time in her life, she was able to buy a brand new car. And she still sends me Christmas cards to this day. And I'm never going to forget working on it.
All right, this next one kind of intrigued me. Do you have a specific role model that you try to follow when it comes to your career? And what it can be a role model in modern times or even a role model from the beginnings of American history?
So there are two. I think everyone should have a lot of role models, and you'll have a lot of role models in the practice of law. And I'm going to expand the term role model and use it and say mentor as well. And so there are a lot of folks who I would consider to be mentors. Some of them are like my parents, some judges who've come before me, like Judge Derensburg, definitely some of the judges in the Eastern District here in Louisiana. But let me say this in broad terms. One, if you're going to have a role model, don't just have one, a role model or mentor, have many, because you're going to need to have mentors or role models for different things. Some of those mentors or role models may be older than you, some of them may be younger than you, and some of them may even be your classmates or friends who are doing some very good things in the practice of law. So be open to having different types of role models or mentors for different types of things. I will tell you that one of my favorite historical role models is Shirley Chisholm. And so when I was in Birmingham, I saw a documentary about Shirley Chisholm at I can't remember the name of that theater, but they did some kind of screening. But the documentary was called Shirley Chisholm, Unbought and Unbossed. And I was amazed at the courage and strength of a young Black woman running for presidency under the conditions and circumstances that Shirley Chisholm did so. And so to this day, I remember that documentary. It's called Shirley Chisholm Unbought and Unbossed. And she's continued to be kind of a role model for me to be bold and be very courageous in a lot of the things that I do and in speaking out on different issues, whether I'm speaking out on behalf of a client or I'm speaking out on something because it's important to me. And so, yeah, I would say Shirley Chisholm for a historical reference.
So Micah's right. I definitely have many role models in my life, one of whom is my mom. She is also technically a lawyer, but she was an engineer for 10 years before she went to law school. And the whole family, everyone said she was crazy. She had a great job at Chevron and she quit to go back to law school because that's what she was passionate about. That's what she wanted to do. And she did it. She made it work. And fortunately and unfortunately, she got pregnant with me halfway through. So then she was dealing with a baby in the middle of law school. I'm born in November, so she had me right before exams. Just a problem from day one. That was me. So she really showed me that there's no right or wrong way to go about doing things. There's always more than one way to get to where you want to go, which is what I always try to tell myself. So in high school, you don't need to know where you're going just yet. You don't have to have it all figured out. And even if you think you know what you want to do and the plan changes later, there's always more than one way to get to where you want to go. And then as far as historical figures, it's a little cliche, but Ruth Bader Ginsburg by far is one of my role models. The amount of times that woman was told no, and she didn't listen and did what she wanted anyway and did what was right anyway. I could go on and on and on about it, but I'm sure you guys know the great things that she did for the law and for women. How could she not be a role model?
All right, great. And now these next questions are a bit more specific to your practice. So this question is, what is the best bachelor's degree to obtain before going to school for constitutional law?
So I don't know if there's a best bachelor's degree for constitutional law. I will say this, for whatever reason, engineers tend to do very well in law school. I don't know why, but engineers tend to do very well academically in law school. They're usually like in the top 10% of every law school class. But so I don't know. I would suggest maybe a degree in history would suit you very well in constitutional law because, quite frankly, constitutional issues tend to stack upon each other like Tetris, if you guys remember that game or have ever played it. But they're like bricks that stack up on each other. And so understanding how the law was built up over time is a lot of what goes on in constitutional law. And so your ability to understand the historical context of law and put it in present terms and how that impacts the law today, I think will suit you very well. I also think that to the extent you are able to take classes in logic, that will help you as well, because a lot of what goes on in the law is, like I said, it's like a puzzle sometimes. And so it's figuring out how pieces fit together, how one argument might affect another argument down the road. And so classes in logic games, and thinking logically, I think will be able to benefit you regardless of what area of the law you end up going into.
And the only other thing I would add is writing classes. Like Micah mentioned before, you do a lot of writing as an attorney, and if you can do it well, it makes your job a lot easier. But I think history is a good one for con law.
All right. This next one, have you ever had an experience where you had to represent someone that you believed was wrong?
I have not had that experience as of yet. I remember in law school, we always talk about, we call them hypotheticals, but they're basically pretend scenarios where you might have to represent someone who wanted to lie, and how do you ethically represent someone who wants to lie on the witness stand when the judge won't allow you to withdraw from the representation, meaning no longer be that person's lawyer. And so you may come across those situations in the practice of law, but I can't say I've had to represent someone in that scenario just as of yet. You may at some point in time have to represent, and I have represented folks where we've had an argument, but I didn't think it was the strongest argument possible, or I didn't think it was the best argument, or I thought there was a good chance that we were going to lose on our argument when we went to court. The reality is, as an attorney, you have an obligation to be what we call a zealous advocate, meaning not just to go into court and say, well, Judge Hussein, I think my client should win, we shouldn't, the JPYC should be able to keep its logo, they shouldn't, have to give up their logo and give it to the, Jefferson Parish Yodelers Club, they should be able to keep their initials. No, you've got a duty to go before the court and say, Judge, this is why the JPYC is the best organization in Jefferson Parish to carry the initials JPYC. You've got to be able to do that regardless of your own personal belief as to the how strong or weak your argument is. And so be prepared for that. You can practice it now. When mom and dad say, you got to get off the phone and study. Well, mom and dad, what if we're on the phone talking about studying? Isn't that a good reason to be on the phone? Might not be the best argument, but get some practice in now.
So something I learned when I was working at the public defender's office, because of course, whenever anyone found out I was working at the public defender's office, they would ask me, how do you defend people that you know are guilty? Well, that's not the case. And as lawyers, it's not our job to determine whether someone's guilty or not, especially in criminal law. Not that I practice in criminal law, but something I learned working at the PD's office was it's your job to make sure your client gets their day in court, no matter who they are, no matter what evidence there may be against them. Your job is to protect their constitutional rights in court and put forth the best case that you can. And it's up for the judge or jury to decide who's guilty or not. It's your job to just make sure your client gets a fair day in court. And it's the same on the civil side too. You just want to make sure that you put forth the best case you possibly can for your client.
All right. This next one, before starting law school or before entering your field, was there anything that really shocked you? Something unexpected that happened? And is there anything in particular that you would tell people that they should know about law school before going?
Rachel, what do you think?
So something that I wish I knew about going to law school before I went to law school is that it definitely helps in securing employment afterwards if you go to a law school in the state where you want to practice. I didn't realize that when I picked Penn State Law in State College, Pennsylvania. But like I said before, there's always more than one way to get to where you want to go. And it worked out just fine for me. I just ended up doing more of my applications over the summer as opposed to when other people were doing their applications, so I could go to interviews then. So if you really want to go to Florida A&M for law school or wherever you want, whatever state, go ahead and do it. The experience will be worth it. And there's always more than one way to get to where you want to go. And then you'll have to circle back on something that shocked me. I'm going to have to think on that a little more.
Yeah. So I always thought that in order to go to law school, you had to have a lot of money. And I never thought that there were scholarships available to go to law school. I either thought that you had to have a lot of money or you were going to go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. The reality is, at every law school, there's a whole lot of money, scholarship money, for you to be able to go to law school. So it doesn't matter how much money you have or don't have. There's some money at that law school for someone like you to be able to attend that law school for free. Every law school has scholarships. They have endowments. There are probably other local civic organizations that have money for you to go to law school. So don't think just because well, you know what, I don't have a lot of money. I don't come from a lot of money. I won't be able to go to law school. No, that's not true. There's money out there. You're going to have to look for it. You're going to have to dig for it. Sometimes it's going to be on that law school's website. Sometimes you're going to have to go down to the career development office or the financial aid office at that law school or whatever it's called and ask about those scholarships or those endowments. You're going to have to write some essays for it, but there's some money out there for you to be able to go to law school without having to, go into huge amounts of debt. So don't let money be a barrier if you want to become a lawyer and help people. The other thing I would say is I didn't realize how much time law school takes. And I'll say that meaning law school is 3 years, although Loyola here locally has a part-time program that's 4 years. Law school is 3 years. The 3 years is going to go by in the blink of an eye. But the actual act of being a law school student takes a lot of time. You're in like class, and when you're not in class, you're constantly reading. And when you're not reading, you're drafting case summaries or briefs, which are basically just summaries of the cases that you're reading, or you're in study groups with your classmates. It just takes a lot of time. And maybe I had forgotten because, again, I was an undergrad, then I worked, then I went to law school. I just have forgotten how much time that it takes to be a college student. So if you go straight from undergrad to law school, maybe that won't be a big deal for you. If you work between the two or life happens between the two, just be prepared that, hey, law school's going to take a lot of time.
All right, this next one is, do lawyers of specific practices make more money than lawyers of other practices?
Royce, I'm going to let you answer that since you've been at the public defender's office and now you're at a big fancy plaintiff's law firm.
Oh, geez. Well, I worked for free at the public defender's office. I'll just say that. I actually don't know how much public defenders get paid in Jefferson Parish, but I imagine doing any kind of public interest work is going to be less than working for a private firm or a private company, just because there's more money to go around. But it doesn't mean that it's not just as fulfilling. I think it's a lot easier to get up in the morning and say, I'm going to go defend the constitutional rights of the individuals and citizens of Louisiana than it might necessarily be to say, I'm going to go write a contract for my favorite client company. Maybe, I don't know. I don't do contract work. But I would imagine any type of public interest job will pay less. It'll just be rewarding in different ways than a private job.
Yeah, so because there's so many different types of lawyers in so many different areas, the salaries differ too, not just between the jobs, but also between the states, between the countries. The lawyers, the chief counsel at Facebook probably makes a whole lot more money than an attorney who's working at a local nonprofit somewhere, in New Orleans. And so, and maybe the lawyer at the district attorney's office in one state makes a different salary than the lawyer at the district attorney's office in another state. And so it'll differ a little bit depending upon what area of the law you're practicing in, and quite frankly, what part of the country, what part of the world you're really in.
All right, these next two questions are really similar, so I'll say both of them. Do you have to intern at a firm to be accepted to law school, or would you suggest it? And have you ever given personal training to high school or college students that were interested in law?
Yeah, so you don't have to intern at a law firm in order to be accepted into law school. Your real interest in the law school is going to be taking the LSAT. Really, that's going to be the doorway for you to go into law school. Having that legal experience or getting legal experience while you're in law school, working for a law firm while you're in law school during your summers will help you get a job after law school. Absolutely. And I think those law firms are far more likely to hire you if you worked for them before, or if you worked for another law firm while you were in law school. And what was the second question? I'm sorry.
Have you ever given personal training yourself to high school or college students that were interested in law?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I was a law clerk for Judge Darrensburg and Jefferson Parish, we had interns over the summer, actually during the school year too, but we definitely had interns over the summer. And I remember my last year there, I had six interns with me, one of whom was a high school senior, and one of whom had just graduated and would be starting college as a freshman the following year. And so, absolutely, the Louisiana State Bar Association has a program called the Suit Up Program, which is a program designed to give high school seniors and college freshmen exposure to not just the practice of law, but what a law school setting might look like. I encourage you to look that program up. It's called the Suit Up Program. It's sponsored by the State Bar Association. The Federal Bar Association here in New Orleans has a similar program, but I think it's geared towards younger students, maybe junior high. But absolutely is a short answer to your question. And you'll find that if you want to go sit and watch cases over the summer in the judges' chambers, there'll be opportunities for you to do that. I would encourage you to reach out to, since this is the JPYC, I would encourage you to reach out to the Jefferson Parish Bar Association. The judges in Jefferson Parish are very involved in the Bar Association, so reach out to them for some opportunities to kind of work and shadow those judges over the summer.
So we might be talking about different programs, Micah, but I know the Federal Bar Association does the Justice Camp, which is for high school students. This year, because it was a unique year, we opened it up to lower grades as well, because we made it a virtual program. But normally, it is an in-person program. I think we were doing 3 days where you would come to the Eastern District of Louisiana, the federal courthouse down in the city, and you would hear from different lawyers, different judges about different aspects of the law, all the while learning the skills that you would need to put on a mock trial or a skills showcase with mock trial components at the end. So if any of you are interested in that, hopefully we can be back to an in-person camp next year. But if not, we'll definitely do a virtual program. And I'm pretty sure you can still see the presentations from this summer on the Federal Bar Association New Orleans chapter or New Orleans Federal Bar Association YouTube channel. So if you're interested to see what it's about, that's a unique offering. Because like I said, normally it's a 3-day camp in person that I was very involved in. And Micah participated as well as a speaker the year before this one. Did a great job, by the way. So that's one opportunity. The other thing that I've done is I've judged the high school mock trial competitions at the 24th Judicial District Court in Gretna, which like I said, I can't recommend mock trial enough, either in high school or college. It's a great experience. And even if the law isn't really your thing, it's a fun way to meet new people and be on a team, especially if maybe like sports aren't necessarily your thing. You can still be part of a team and do mock trial. And do mock trial.
All right, next question. I want to be an environmental lawyer, but I want to live abroad. Should I just go ahead and try to practice law outside of the country?
That's a great question. I don't know much about practicing law abroad. I know you can do it, and it could be that you work for a company in the States that has locations abroad that need help with environmental compliance in these other countries. Like Micah said, if there's something you're interested in, there's a law job you can have doing it. There are lawyers everywhere. That's one niche I can think of, but I'm sure there are tons of other practices. Or you could be a lawyer who works remotely while abroad and work on something here in the United States. If you can dream it, you can be it as a lawyer.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that's the case. And so if you know you want to be an environmental lawyer, having a law degree or a degree from a law school in the States, I think is going to benefit you whatever part of the world you want to be in. I would suggest to you that if you there's probably a couple of things you got to figure out. What it means to be an environmental lawyer, what issue you particularly want to take up or who you want to work for, and then what part of the country. The one thing I will say is if there's a specific part of the country in which you want to focus your environmental concern, start to establish a relationship with that country at this point in time, meaning if English is not the dominant language in that country, you definitely need to become bilingual and speak that language. If there's an opportunity for you to study abroad in that part of the country while you're in high school or in undergrad, do that now and start to establish those relationships. So when you decide to go to law school, and I'm going to presume that we're going to go to law school here. If you decide to go to law school in the United States, and then you want to become an environmental lawyer who focuses on issues or has a client who has issues in that country, you already got a documented history that you know the country, you know the people, you know the laws, you've been involved there already. And I think that's going to give you a leg up on some of the competition.
All right. Do lawyers normally do more than their specific practice, or do they just stick to their one practice?
So
Rachel,
we might start sounding like a broken record, but you really end up doing anything in the law. So solo practitioners, for example, people that are a one-man show or one-woman show in their law office, they could work on any type of law that walks through the door. It's not necessarily limited to one type of practice area. Now, us, even as plaintiff's personal injury lawyers, we do civil law, as in like the lawsuit side of it, as opposed to criminal. But there are so many different types of cases that we do as plaintiff's personal injury. Like medical malpractice would be different than how we would pursue a car accident case. So it's not like you're pigeonholed. It's not like just picking a major or anything like that. Just because you pick one area of law to practice in doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do for forever and ever, the end. And even within a practice area, there are different aspects that you can work on with the same type of knowledge.
All right, and this is our last question of the day. It's kind of an interesting one. Other than a law degree, was there any specific extra knowledge that you had that helped you out when handling a case? Some completely random information that pulled through for you while at work?
That's a really good question. Just laughing. I can tell you, I think being a law clerk, being a co-pilot for a judge, has tremendously helped me as a practicing attorney. What happens for most people who go to law school is that they come out and they become a practicing attorney, which I would tell someone is like going to play, I say football, going to play any game, but going to play a football game and you don't know the referee, you don't know the rules of the game, and you don't know how the referee is going to apply those rules. So having clerked for a judge, having worked with a referee for 2 years, really helped me to understand my role, my ultimate role as a football player, and how to carry out my role as a quarterback or a lineman or a receiver or a running back, how to make those moves and make those plays and make a tackle properly without getting a flag thrown, and how to keep my feet in bounds when I make a reception, how to keep my feet in bounds so I know I got that big touchdown, right? So that has really helped me. The other thing I would say, and it's not so much random information, but just, I'll say life experience. So as you noticed over the past, hour and a half, lawyers like to talk a lot. We like to talk a lot. We got a lot to say. But what you really need to do, if you really want to be a good lawyer, is stop talking and start listening and observing. You're going to learn so much about people and about humanity, about what drives them, about what's important to them, and what matters to them. and knowing how to predict how someone will act or react, I think will be kind of what the question refers to, is the random pieces of information. Being able to know, you know what? I know Robayat's going to say this once I make this argument, right? I know he's going to do. Knowing that information because you've seen it before, you've heard it before, knowing that it's going to be invaluable for you, whether you're arguing before a judge, whether you're drafting a contract and you're negotiating a specific provision, whether you're working on an environmental case and you're going out to look at what's called a brownfield in some part of the country, whether you're doing some research online about how the judge has ruled in a previous case. Knowing that information, knowing humanity, knowing how people react and respond to things, I think will be very helpful for you. So earlier I said that there's one course you should take before you become a lawyer, or even after you become a lawyer, because you can always take an acting class as you become a lawyer. I would say take an acting class. The other class I might encourage you to take, in addition to a class on logic or logic games, would be a psychology class. There's a basic intro to psychology. That's going to help you not just as a lawyer representing clients, it's also going to help you as an associate at a law firm to know how to manage the partners. It's going to help you learn how to manage your clients as well, because you know how people react, how they think, and how you need to position yourself in order to prompt a certain type of outcome.
Yeah, I second all of that that Micah said. That's absolutely right. And as far as random knowledge, truly random knowledge that has helped me in my legal career, not necessarily on a specific case, I would say is knowledge about college and professional football, which sounds strange, but more often than not, and something you got to remember is lawyers are people, which I think, especially Micah, especially in this day and age, when everything's done over the phone or through a computer, at the end of the day, lawyers are people. And because it's such an adversarial field, it's hard to remember that the people on the other side are just trying to do their jobs. So when you're out for a hearing and opposing counsel's there and you're waiting for the judge to come up, anything that you're interested in can be a way to break the ice and for you to remind each other that lawyers are people. And I just happen to be probably overly passionate about college football and professional football, which is always something easy to talk about at networking events or at a hearing or before a deposition, even with the witness. So like Micah said, he went to Florida A&M. I don't know if they have a football team. That's actually not one I know about. But normally when people say where they went to school, I can say, FSU, Florida State University, the Seminoles, how are they doing? Are they having a good year? Or what conference are they in? Or things like that. Something to break the ice, something that you're passionate about. And if it's music, that could be something that you can use to try and just bring a sense of similarity, a way to connect with other people. Because like Micah said, being able to understand how people are going to react is very important. And also being able to connect with other people as a lawyer. You can't possibly find a solution to a problem if you can't connect with the other side or understand why they think the way they think. You're never going to reach any kind of compromise in that situation. So if you're passionate about something, don't be afraid to talk about it. I would say that's the random knowledge that has helped me in my career.
Yeah, don't be afraid to be you. And I think what Rachel's pointed out is very important, especially for young lawyers, for lawyers who are women, for people of color, minorities, for members of the LGBT community, for anyone who feels like you're the only in the room, whatever that only is. You don't have to feel uncomfortable because you may facially, right, on first glance, look like the only in the room. The reality is there's someone else in that room who may not look like you or may not have the same background that you do, but who you have a connection with. And it may take a little work for you to find that connection. It may take a little effort for you to kind of dig and see what your backgrounds are and these sorts. So I know Rachel knows about FSU now, and I can tell her, Florida A&M is literally right up the hill from FSU. You can see the two campuses from each other. So now we have another connection. And Rachel and I work together at the federal bar and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it'll take a little bit of effort, but don't ever feel like, you're the only in the room. The reality is you're not. There's a place for you in the practice of law, whether you're a 10th generation lawyer or a first generation lawyer, whether you're from New Orleans or Gretna or Kenner or Chalmette, or you're from, somewhere out of state. There's a place for you in the practice of law. It's just incumbent upon you to find out what's going to be a good fit for you.
We actually have one last question that we want to squeeze in really quick. What kind of music do you listen to?
Micah?
So I listen to a lot of music. I listen to a lot of music. We play classical music for my son when he goes to sleep at night. Sometimes it's jazz music. During the month of February, during Black History Month, we play speeches for him from like Martin Luther King. Right now we're playing Christmas music. In my car, if you're with me in the car in the morning, you're going to hear, a variety of music depending upon the day. Usually on my way to work, I'm listening to talk radio, so NPR, National Public Radio. Sometimes on the way home, I'm listening to pop music. I'm listening to rap. I'm listening to bounce music, country music. I might be listening to gospel music. I might be listening to some old school R&B, like hip hop, like back in the day, Salt and Pepper type music. Especially if it's a Friday and I left work early, or if I won a big case against Rachel. So really just a variety, it just depends upon the day and what kind of mood I'm in. I would say this, going to law school opened my eyes to different types of law that I didn't even know existed. And that same type of mentality has kind of bled over into my appreciation of music as well.
Yeah, I'm the same way, which is an easy answer to give. But I listen to a whole bunch of different stuff. I was a sleeper on Hamilton for a very long time. I can admit that. But when it was finally put on Disney, I watched it and I saw what the hype was about. I don't even know what genre this is considered right now, but back in high school, I used to listen to a lot of like the emo music or the punk music. So things like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy, those are still like probably some of my favorite pump up songs. So if I have like a big hearing that I'm going to in the morning, I'll put that on the way to work. So I'm all hyped up by the time I get to court. Or like jazz, like Hot 8 Brass Band. I saw them at New Year. They're great, right? And their live show is exactly what you would think it would be. It was absolutely amazing. So all kinds of things. Country, especially in the summer when it's hot outside, I feel like that's the perfect time for some country. So I listen to a lot. That's a great question. Whoever asked that, I'm very glad you asked. Because lawyers are people.
Yeah, I'm a big zombie movie fan. You got questions about zombie movies? Call me. Zombie series. Which one's the best ones to watch? Like, if you want to watch them with your grandma, with your little brother, little sister, you want to do a zombie date night movie? I know zombie movies. I read books on zombies. I mean, look, there's a really good book out there called The Zombie Survivor. You know what? We'll talk about it later. We'll do that during the next one. But you got questions about zombies?
Don't ask me about zombies.
On their website, the Centers for Disease Control has information on how to survive a zombie apocalypse. So if it's important enough for this to take seriously, I'm just saying.
I read that because that's like one of my biggest fears, Micah. This is why I can't do zombie movies, because I'm going to be prepared for the apocalypse. It is like one of my biggest fears, not because I enjoy it. Can't do it.
Boy Scout, be prepared. Be prepared. Look at Jenny. She's like, oh, zombies.
But if you have any questions at all, I know my contact information wasn't up on the screen for that long, but I sent Robiette my PowerPoint. So please feel free to contact me. I'm sure Micah feels the same way, whether it's today, tomorrow, 6 years from now. Please don't hesitate to contact us.
All right. And with that, that is the end of our 2020 JPYC Shadowing Program. Once again, thank you both for taking part in this program. Do you both have any last comments to give to our viewers?
I don't know. Micah's already taken all the good comments, so.
Just thanks everyone for having us. Like I said, there's room for you. There's room for you.
Agreed.
All right, thank you so much. Mr. Paul, Mr. Adam, do you want to say any last words?
No, I think they've summed it up.
Yep. Thanks for having us. Thanks for letting us help you guys host this.
Thank you for hosting this for us. And with that, thank you everyone for showing up. Once again, thank you so much for taking part in our program. I hope all of our viewers learned something new, and we'll use all this information to your benefit. If you ever need Mr. Zeno's contact, Ms. Mackin's contact, I can get both of those things to you. And with that, good luck, stay safe, and happy holidays. See you all soon.
See you.
Thank you so much.